From blueprints to booming businesses, from groundbreaking to grand openings, this is Beyond the Blueprint. Join host Brad Howard as he takes you behind the scenes of growth and development in Mooresville, Lake Norman, and beyond. We're talking with the decision makers, the planners, the visionaries shaping our communities, giving exclusive insight into what happens before, during, and after projects that define our region. The future is being built right now. Let's go beyond the blueprint.
Good Friday afternoon. From blueprints to booming communities, from boardrooms to capital gain strategies. This is Beyond the Blueprint, and I'm your host, Brad Howard. We're in the home stretch of 2025, a time when a lot of you are closing deals, talking with your CPA, and trying to figure out how that big tax bill is going to be for 2026. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us on 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, on social media at WSICnews.com and on the WSIC News app. Today's show is a fun one for me because my guest is not just an expert, he's a very old friend. And we go all the way back to UNC Charlotte, campus life, hanging out, 49ers basketball, and I'll let him go into detail on the 49ers basketball. But fast forward today, he's now one of the leading voices in opportunity zones. He is known as the OZ Sherpa, founder of OZPros or OZPros, guests on shows like Truly Passive Income, the Crexy podcast, and a guy that a lot of investors call when they want to turn a tax bill into a long-term tax-free investment. It's my good friend Ashley Tison with me today. And Ashley, it's great to have you here. And let's go back to the days at UNC Charlotte for a minute.
Excellent. Love me some 49ers, baby.
That's right. So what did life look like for you back at UNC Charlotte? In the classroom, basketball court, or just growing up in the city? How did that season of your life impact what you're doing now?
Well, so I grew up in Indiana. My dad was on the first Final Four team with Jeff Mullins at Duke back in the 60s. And so, when I had no choice but to play basketball. And we went to the Final Four my senior year. It was probably one of the most exciting times basketball-wise that I ever had. And then I went to the Air Force Academy out of high school in Indiana. And when I got to the academy, just through a set of different circumstances, found out that I couldn't fly. And the basketball team was less than stellar at the Air Force Academy while I was there. And my dad was on a telephone call with his good buddy, Jeff Mullins. And he said, hey, Jeff, he said, my son is actually looking to transfer. Back then, we didn't have the transfer portal.
Right.
And so it was conversations like that happened that ultimately ended up resulting in me transferring from the Air Force Academy down to UNC Charlotte. And I'll never forget my first day at UNC Charlotte versus the one at the Air Force Academy. So at the Air Force Academy, I stepped across this line and these cadre members came out of nowhere and they were like, fall in, soldier, you belong to the United States Air Force Academy. And it was craziness for the next 4 weeks. When I got to UNC Charlotte, it was like, I was a little bit nervous, and I got out of the car, and there were these 4 really cute girls that came out of the dorm, and they weren't like the welcoming committee or anything like that, but they're like, hey, are you the new basketball player that's moving in down the hall? And I was like, thank you, Lord. I have arrived in my new home. I am really fired up about being here in Charlotte. And I can't tell you how much the city kind of welcomed me with open arms, from the Luke Wire, George Andrews, and for Mr. Luke Wire pulling me aside and telling me stories about my dad, to being able to interact with Coach, and going up to his house up there at the lake where I met you long ago.
That's right.
To run around town and going out downtown and being a part of kind of the downtown resurgence with Bar Charlotte coming back in and working with Bob and the crew that was doing that deal. It was an exciting time to be here in Charlotte, as I feel like it kind of got its mojo in the late 90s and, started becoming the major metropolis that it is now.
So if you had to look back on that time in your life, did you see yourself in the direction where you ended up today?
I don't know that any of us would have seen ourselves. In
We
any
have some
kind of
stories, but we
professional
won't go there.
capacity, right?
Right.
I always, was kind of attracted to public speaking and to interacting with people kind of from the forefront. And I knew that I wanted to do something where I was able to help people and to be involved in, different things. I absolutely would not have seen myself as an expert in tax strategy. As a matter of fact, when I went to Chapel Hill and I went into my tax class, I went back to my advisor after the first class and I was like, hey, do I have to have this in order to graduate? And they were like, no. I was like, I'm dropping that class right now because that was absolutely miserable. And so I would not have seen myself going into tax strategy by any stretch of the imagination. I kind of had a plan for being a lawyer. I think that had always been in the back of my mind. But when I majored in international business at UNCC, I was envisioning myself doing something, with respect to international stuff. And I don't really do a whole lot of that anymore, but always kind of saw myself to helping people out. And that's what I get to do now. I help people solve their tax problems. And what's really exciting is I get to do so in a way that allows them to do well by doing good, and then to educate subsequent generations about how to have a healthy relationship with wealth and how to use it for good. And that's pretty exciting stuff.
And on your background, so after college, you did business there. Then you went to law school, commercial real estate. Then you were in mergers and acquisitions. You took a very detailed approach and a path that most people don't follow. All of that has given you a unique skill set to make you the OZ Sherpa. I mean, there's no other way to put it because just of the unique talents that you have. Let's talk about the timing of all this. When you're making the transition from law, commercial real estate, when you went into mergers and acquisitions, where was that in relation to the financial collapse?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much was caused by the financial collapse. So I was associate general counsel for a tenant in common syndicator called Gemini Real Estate Advisors. And we were buying commercial shopping centers by the gallon, and we were selling them by the scoop to 1031 investors. And that was exciting. And then we also raised opportunity funds to take advantage of developing different deals. And so we built Food Lions, we built a bunch of commercial shopping centers. And when the commercial real estate market crashed in 2008 and 2009, it pretty much harpooned the tech industry. And so it was, paramount that I find something else. And I tell you what, there was nobody hiring in 2009. And so I literally popped up a shingle. I got an office with the Miller McNish CPAs that were across the street from my house down in Eastover. And I started, helping people sell their businesses. I was doing sell side work. I got plugged in with the guys at Viking Mergers and Acquisitions. And we built up a business doing third party work where we didn't represent either the buyer or the seller. And we helped bring Wall Street level sophistication that we had developed at Gemini, and kind of distributing our real estate products through a network of broker dealers on Wall Street. And we took that level of sophistication and we brought it down to Main Street transactions. And we were able to do that with some really kind of cutting edge at the time technology that generated documents. And it was exciting to be able to grow that practice and to help business owners to be able to kind of take that next step. And I wanted to, as I was doing that, I saw a lot of business owners that were leaving money on the table. I saw them leaving money on the table in form of taxes, and also in just like things that they hadn't really focused on as they were thinking about their transition. And so I sold that law firm so that I could specifically do that, so that I could help business owners get their businesses ready for sale, figure out what they wanted to do with it to figure out what was the next chapter of their life so that they were moving to something as opposed to away from something. And then like as I was doing that, I was in a CLE and I heard this guy talking about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. And he started describing these 3 pages that created these things called opportunity zones. And I ran him down in the hall afterwards and I was like, hey man, I was like, what you just described sounded like 1031 and private equity got married. And he was like, and they had this beautiful baby named Opportunity Zones. and I was like, holy cow, that fits in with this seemingly crazily disjointed background, right? So this massive exposure to commercial real estate coupled in with mergers and acquisitions and helping operating business owners to really maximize their businesses. You couldn't have invented a better program for what my background was. And so we popped up a website and it's been all OZs ever since.
That's right. And the OZ Sherpa was born. And
that's right.
That's right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're with Ashley Tison, the OZ Sherpa and OZPros. And I'm Brad Howard, and we'll be right back. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint. We are joined today by Ashley Tison, the OZ Sherpa. Ashley, you've called opportunity zones the most powerful economic tax incentive Congress has ever put on the table. And you're helping folks defer serious amounts of tax obligation with it. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it was created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. And it specifically was in order to encourage private capital to go into areas that had been left behind by kind of the recovery from the recession. And they wanted to get the attention of private capital that was in traditional in traditional markets like the stock market, that kind of thing. They wanted to get it off the sidelines, and then they wanted to make it patient. And they accomplished all 3 of those things with this legislation. And God bless them, in like literally 3 pages that they snuck in, I think within the last week prior to passing the reconciliation bill of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And so it was nothing short of amazing of what they were able to accomplish. Almost 150 billion. Some estimates are more than 150 billion. We at our little shop of 10 people, we've talked to over $2 billion worth of capital gains, and that are looking for a way to get deferred and to get into the game of doing well by doing good. And so it's pretty exciting to see that that the program is actually working and that it's getting private capital to go into these areas. And so, it's fairly simple about how it works. That was the other cool thing about what they did is they said, hey, listen, let's not make this overly complicated for the investors. Let's make it easy for them to do, easy for them to comply with, and make it so that it's as of right, as opposed to something that they have to get permission for. And so they did. And I think that that's, been one of the reasons why we've seen so much capital go into these zones and into the deals that are happening inside of the zones. So one of the other exciting things about it is that they made it so that it's not just real estate based. So you've got different real estate programs like 1031, and you've got new market tax credits, and you got LIHTC deals and affordable housing and that kind of thing. But this one is set up so that you can either go into real estate or you can go into operating businesses. And I think that that's the most exciting part about it is that, with that upside and with the job creation and the real powerful part of what runs the American economy, which is the American small business, it allows those business owners to be able to take advantage of this program. And that's what we've set about trying to allow people to do at OZPros. We want Main Street level investors and business operators to be able to take advantage of what I think is the most powerful legislatively created tax incentive ever created.
So let's back up and unpack this a little bit for people that may or may not understand it and bring it down, into plain English and go back to I guess you had OZ1 versus OZ2. So back when Tim Scott and the administration first came out with this concept, So let's go down. What defines an opportunity zone? And why would I want to invest in this? So I guess go down and strip it down to the basics and just start there. What is the opportunity zone, and why would it benefit me as an investor?
There's approximately 8,700 opportunity zone tracks that are out there. And if you want to find them, you could go to our map at ozpros.com/map. And what Congress did is that they were actually pretty ingenious this way, is that they left it up to the governors of the states to designate up to 25% of their low-income census tracts as opportunity zones. And they could designate contiguous tracts even if they weren't low income, which actually is one of the things that kind of raised eyebrows. But the governors got to designate these census tracts, and in so doing, they created a geographical boundary of the areas where they wanted to attract investments. Some governors they were like, hey, listen, we're just going to take the poorest tracts and we're going to make those our census tracts. Other governors got really involved with their like down at the local municipality level, and they said, listen, what are the areas that really need deals? And where do you have deals that are kind of teed up? And where would there be areas that are investable and that would just need a little bit of a push to get people to really come into those? Those states are the ones that have received massive amounts of dollars. And so, I can use the example of Massachusetts versus Alabama. Massachusetts just did a blanket, like, hey, we're just going to designate the poorest ones, and we're just going to let it ride. Alabama got really intentional about which ones they picked. And they said, we want to pick the poor ones, but we also want to pick ones that are most eligible for investment and the ones that we're going to get behind. We're going to bring all other kinds of government resources to bear in order to make these deals work inside of these zones. And Alabama, as a result, has seen record level of private investment come into that state because of how intentional they got around the Opportunity Zone program. And so the general gist is that if you have a capital gain, you put it into a qualified opportunity fund, that you then can defer that gain for 5 years. This was you deferred it until December 31st, 2026 under 1.0. Under 2.0, you'll get to defer it for 5 years. And if you were invested by a certain period of time, so if you were invested by December 31st of 2019, you got a 15% reduction in your taxes when you paid it in 26. If you were invested by 2021, it was a 10% reduction. And so that created this mad rush of activity for people to get invested by those deadlines. And it really worked. And as a result, we saw massive amounts of inflow in 19 and 21. And we've seen continuous inflow ever since. And 1.0 is not dead. So one of the things that they had to do in order to incentivize people to come into these kind of perceived, undervalued zones of what could potentially be riskier areas of investment is that they had to make it so that if you lost money on the deal, that you paid less taxes. And so if you're in qualified opportunity fund investment is worth less than what your original gain was on December 31st, 2026, then you pay taxes on whatever the amount of your QOF investment is worth at that time. And so if you can write down your investment on paper, there's an opportunity to save 20, 30, upwards of 50% in taxes if you're invested into a deal by December 31st, 2026, which represents kind of a once in a lifetime play for people who have significant capital gains or potential capital gains to be able to realize those capital gains and then be able to get a substantial reduction. That's under 1.0. Because the program was so successful and it was going to time out, it was going to end December 31st, 2026, Congress said, hey, we really need to make sure that this thing continues. And so they extended the program and they made it permanent. And so now there will be a designation of new zones every 10 years. Now there's a little bit tighter criteria on what the governors get to designate, and they can't use contiguous tracts anymore. It has to be low income census tracts. But there's now an ability for the governors to be able to designate those zones every 10 years and for people to be able to put their capital gains into a fund and then to be able to defer that gain for 5 years. And then when they go to pay those taxes, to pay 10% less of, if they're in a regular opportunity zone fund, and then 30% less if they're invested 90% into rural deals. So a lot of times people are like, oh, well, qualified opportunity fund, that sounds complicated. Is that like a professionally managed fund that's out there that's on Wall Street? And the answer is no. It could be literally as simple as an LLC taxed as a partnership that says, hey, listen, I want to be a qualified opportunity fund. I want to invest into qualified opportunity zones. And so that's what we specialize in setting up. I think we set up more captive qualified opportunity funds than anybody in the country. We're over 2,000 at this point in time. And we're helping people, that are everyday investors to be able to take advantage of this program, to get all of those tax incentives, and then to be able to invest in these areas that, according to the 2010 census, were low income census tracts. And they're doing well by doing good by utilizing this program.
Okay, so let's take a real world example. Let's say I'm driving around in the car right now, listening to this show, and I know that I have a big tax obligation coming this year. So walk me through in plain English and describe this, because some people may be used to doing 1031 exchanges, working with you, setting up your own fund or investing in an opportunity zone fund that, with other investors. Walk us through the real world example of how this works and why it would be beneficial to look at both options.
Sure. So you've got a capital gain and you've either had it. And so the great thing is that I can actually go back retroactively. So if it was a stock gain, I can go back 180 days. If it came from a partnership or a S Corp, I can go all the way back to January 1st of the previous year. So if somebody had, if they sold something via a partnership, they could have sold it January 1st of 2025. I've got till September of next year to put that into a fund. And so it's very flexible with respect to the timing. It also does not require a qualified intermediary. So they literally call us. We set them up an LLC tax as a partnership with some special language in the operating agreement and with some other documents that they need. And then they get a bank account. They put their money from wherever it came from or wherever they want to pull the money from. It doesn't have to trace. They put that money into the bank account. And now they've deferred that capital gain until December 31st of 2026. And so once that money's in the fund, now they need to find an investment that they can make into one of these qualified opportunity zone tracks, which once again, they can go to OZPros.com/map to find that. And they either buy real estate or they start a business, or they could lease real estate for their business if they wanted to. And they could, we've helped somebody buy a bakery that was inside of an opportunity zone, and they turned that into an opportunity zone business. We've helped people buy machine shops that were outside of the zone and move them into the zone. We've helped people do single family rentals. We've helped them do Airbnbs. We've helped people do hotels, multifamily. We've done a bunch of boat and RV storage deals. So pretty much any kind of real estate deal will work. We've actually helped people set up a dentist office inside of an opportunity zone where they actually bought the building and then they set up the actual dental office as a qualified opportunity zone business as well. And so both of those now on their new investment, so they're going to pay the taxes in 2027 if they invest before December 31st, 2026. But if they're under construction, we can give them a valuation discount and they're going to pay, say they had $1 million capital gain, and the value of their investment's worth $500,000, they're going to pay taxes on $500,000 instead of $1 million. So they pay the taxes on that, and now they hold their investment inside of the opportunity zone. They hold that for 10 years, and at the end of that deal, they're going to get what's called a step up in basis to fair market value when they transact. So when they sell that to somebody, and they could actually sell it to themselves, which they would probably want to wait till the end, which you have to hold it 10 years, but you get to hold it 30 years. And at any time that you transact between that 10-year and the 30-year mark, you get to take this step up in basis to fair market value. Now, why that's significant is because you pay taxes based upon what your fair market value is that you transact at and your basis. And whatever the difference is between that, you're going to pay capital gains on that. And then also, if you've depreciated out assets, you're also going to pay depreciation recapture. Well, the opportunity zone eliminates both of those. It eliminates both your capital gains and it eliminates your depreciation recapture. So it's extremely powerful for your new investment that's happening inside of the opportunity zone.
All right, and we're going to continue learning more when we get back from this break. Ashley Tison is teaching us how to save money. So we'll be right back with the OZ Sherpa, Ashley Tison, on Beyond the Blueprint. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint, joined by Ashley Tison, the OZ Sherpa, and he's been walking us through a deal, if you have your own deal, how to manage your, how to manage that process. But now, if you don't have a specific deal and you just want to save, is there a way to do this through managed funds or other options?
Absolutely, Brad. And we help people with that exact analysis as well. So there's over 9,000 qualified opportunity funds out there that are being run by professional fund managers and sponsors, and who are utilizing the program to deliver the same tax benefit, but they're actually doing the transactions. So they're finding the deals, they're underwriting the deals, they are making them so that that they're managing it, building it, and doing all of the things for it. And so at that point in time, your real due diligence now becomes underwriting the sponsor. And so a lot of times what we will do is we will help people set up a qualified opportunity fund of their own. And then they either they potentially have a deal that they want to do themselves, or they're like, hey, listen, I want to now allocate into other professionally managed deals. And as long as the sponsor will accept capital at the qualified opportunity zone business level, which most of them do now, is that you can then invest directly into their individual deals and be able to allocate across a number of different sponsors, kind of like your own portfolio. And so we help a number of family offices who have significant capital gains that are happening on a regular basis, where we've established a fund for them. And then we go about helping them find good deals, number one, and then underwrite the sponsors to make sure that they're going to take care of their money. And then number three, to actually help them manage their fund and manage those investments so that way it's getting maximized for both tax purposes and then also for purposes of their audit trail. Because like I said before, you don't have to ask for permission for anybody for this program. But because you don't have to ask for permission, you better make sure that you have a really good audit trail and that you have professionals who know what they're doing to help you file the taxes and to keep track of these investments. And that's what we do.
Okay, so you had a case study, a $500,000 case study video, and you said the ball doesn't lie and the numbers don't either. And can you walk us through how the deal goes from a gain to a 10-year on the 10-year exit? But also stress that it only works if you stay compliant and keep your paperwork tight all the way through. So
that's right.
So why do opportunity zones matter to you, and just beyond the tax math, and help us with that?
So $500,000, you have that gain, and you're going to pay taxes on that gain literally next year. So we're in 2025 right now. You would pay taxes on that gain in April of 2026. You put it into an OZ fund that you're going to develop, and you're able to defer those taxes until December 31st of 2026. And if you're now under construction, you're now able to take a discount. So instead of $500,000, you're going to pay taxes on $250,000 when you go to pay those taxes. Or if you're in 2.0, so you've invested after January 1st of 2027, you're now able to defer those taxes for 5 years and then get a 10% reduction. So either way, you're getting either a deferral or a substantial reduction when you go to pay those taxes. That becomes really powerful because it's tax-free going in. And then as you do your deal and as you grow the value of that deal, and if you're doing a real estate deal, you probably want it to at least triple over 10 years, right? Just rule of 72 wise, you're looking for a 3x return. And so if you take that $500,000 and you're going to triple it to where you're going to exit it after 10 years for 1.5 million, more than likely you've probably done a cost segregation study along the way to get the depreciation out of those deals as well. And now, instead of paying any depreciation recapture on that cost segregation study that you've used to offset income, you're going to pay no depreciation recapture, and you're also not going to pay any capital gains. So your $500,000 is now coming back to you $1.5 million net, as opposed to if you had paid taxes, right? You paid 25% in taxes, or depending on what state you're in, could be upwards of 30% in taxes, to where you would only be eligible to invest $350,000. And then if it were to grow at the same rate, $350,000 is going to come out at $1,050,000, and now you're going to pay another $300,000 of taxes on that. So it's literally double, right, relative to a net benefit after you run the math on that, depending on what state you're in and how much you're paying in state capital gains taxes. Now, what's interesting, Brad, is that North Carolina is one of the few states that is exempted out of the Opportunity Zone statute. And so they do not follow it. So if you're a North Carolina resident or you're doing deals inside of North Carolina, you're actually going to pay income tax, state income tax on it, even though you're federally deferring it and then eliminating it. It's one of the things we're working on, Brad. I would love to hear and would love to have a conversation with whatever legislator I could to try to get us back into the Opportunity Zone program, because I know single-handedly of a number of deals that we've lost in North Carolina because people are like, well, man, if I got a choice and I can, pay 5% less in taxes, I'm going to go to South Carolina and do this same deal. And so we'd love to see it back. And we're one of 5 states, and I don't necessarily know that North Carolina wants to be aligned with any of these 5 states of Massachusetts, California, New York.
Oh my gosh.
Why are we in that same state category? But oh
my gosh. So yeah, but no, what you're describing sounds almost too good to be true. So you get to take advantage of the depreciation. You don't have to pay the recapture, and you don't have to, if you hold it for 10 years, you're tax exempt except for the state portion.
That's right. And what's crazy is that, so most people are like, wow, you mean I have to hold this for 10 years? But the smart money, and as I've been working with family offices, this Opportunity Zone program is starting to turn their perspective relative to how they're doing their investing. And they're looking now at how long they get to hold it. And so they get to hold it for 30 years. And if they're able to hold an asset and to let it appreciate over the next 30 years, completely tax-free, now all of a sudden that is significant wealth generation for subsequent generations. And it's pretty exciting because as you're holding, you're eliminating transaction drag, and you're specifically eliminating that tax drag, which is really powerful. And so, it kind of is too good to be true, but the government specifically put this together. So this isn't some kind of, thing that somebody put together like a conservation easement or other kind of concocted tax mitigation ideas that are out there. This is specifically legislatively created, and it's, they wanted people to invest into these areas. That's the reason why they're making it so great from a tax mitigation standpoint.
So again, there's a lot to unpack here. So for the folks that are listening that are thinking, oh my gosh, this is just so overwhelming, I'm just going to pay the tax and move on, what would you recommend to them? How would you address somebody that takes that standpoint?
I think that it's just like anything else, right? That, there is a little bit of a learning curve. And, I guess that's the question is, how much is it worth to you? And people ask me that question all the time. They're like, how much do I need to have relative to a minimum gain to justify this? And it's not about the gain that you have now. It's about the gain that you're going to have in the future. And if that gain is going to be substantial, then it's going to justify the the small amount of educational brain damage that you're going to have to do in order to familiarize yourself with this. And then there are transactional costs associated with it because you got to file taxes on a couple more entities, and you've got to pay folks that know what they're doing in order to help you build that audit trail out. But it's not, it pales in comparison with what the ultimate tax benefit is on being able to sell with that step up in basis to fair market value.
But just to, before we take the break, but just to understand this is, if I have a transaction coming up and I know that I'm going to have a huge tax obligation, what is the benefit to saying, okay, I think I want to invest in an OZ fund, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to work out. So I engage you, you set up the fund, you close your real estate transaction, you put your gains in the fund, and then a year and a half from now, 18 months, whatever the timeline is, I can't find a deal. What happens?
Yeah, well, there is certainly the ability to invest into other people's deals. And we've got a litany of them. We've got, like I said, we've got storage, we've got industrial, we've got multifamily, we got hospitality, build to rent, and they're in all types of different jurisdictions. So whatever somebody's, kind of preferred asset category is and their desired demographic, we could probably find them a sponsor that's got a deal in an opportunity zone that would be amenable to taking their money in.
All right. So we're
worst case scenario is if they're like, you know what? I just don't want to do any of this stuff. They take the money back out and they just pay the taxes at that time.
Okay. And we're going to keep talking about this when we come back. Brad Howard, joined by Ashley Tison, the OZ Sherpa. We're on Beyond the Blueprint, and we will be right back. And we're back on Beyond the Blueprint. I'm Brad Howard, joined today by Ashley Tison with OZPros, the OZ Sherpa, and we've been talking about how he can save you money. By learning more about opportunity zones, how they work, and following his guidance. Ashley, real quick, as we go into the last segment here, let's talk about OZ1 versus OZ2, and when would the best time be to invest?
Well, Brad, it's kind of like the old Chinese proverb. When was the best time to have planted a tree? And the answer is 30 years ago. And the second best answer is right now. And so I think that that's the same thing with opportunity zones. When was the best time to set up a qualified opportunity fund? It was back in 2018, right? When the program had first come out. When's the second best time? Right now. For those that have no ability to time their capital gains, it's kind of a moot question. It's like, hey, let's make sure that we get your gain in inside of 180 days, because there's nothing that I can do if you pass that 180-day deadline. And so get on the phone with me, reach out to your accountant, reach out to your attorney. I'm happy to help both of them. We actually run a weekly mastermind where people bring their attorneys and their advisors in, and I help them to unpack the Opportunity Zone program about nuanced specific issues. And we'd love to have you on to that mastermind. We've actually got a special promotion for anybody that's listening to this radio show. If they go to ozpros.com/podcast, they can get a month of that free on me. And we'd love to show them and to walk them through their specific questions about opportunity zones. So if they've got a gain that they can't time, then they obviously want to make sure that they're taking that and they're getting it into an opportunity zone as quickly as they can. Now, if they are coming out of a partnership or an S corporation and that sale happens in 2026, then they're going to have to evaluate whether or not they are going to go into a deal that's under construction where they can get that 30 to 50% reduction in taxes, or whether they'd prefer to hold off and invest after January 1st, 2027, and then be able to get that 5-year deferral and the 10% reduction. And so that kind of becomes, the real, I guess, kind of tipping point is what happens in the second half of 2026. So when somebody has a stock gain on July 4th or July 5th, they sell right after the July 4th holiday, and they've got now this massive capital gain. Do they put it in immediately? And the answer is that if they have something that they can discount, yes. If not, then they're probably going to wait until January 1st of 2027. So that's where this kind of timing ends up becoming about an evaluation about whether or not they want to go into 1.0 or whether they want to go into 2.0. And so I think the answer to that is driven by whether or not they're going to go into their own deal that they are then under construction, or they've got some ability to be able to write it down in value, or whether they're potentially going to go into a professionally managed deal. We have a lot of funds that are out there that will be under construction and that will be able to extend that discount valuation opportunity to investors. And so if anybody's interested in going into a professionally managed fund, we can plug them in with folks that are great sponsors who got great deals, who can give you a write down on paper, but that are going to have, ultimate, that 10-year hold is going to come out back to you, and it's going to come out to you in whatever their return metric is. But that's kind of the answer, Brad, is that I think a lot of it depends on their specific situation of what they're looking to go into, and if they can get that write down. If they can, then man, it's an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to potentially save between 30 and 50% inside of that valuation discount that's going to allow them to save that at an amount and a capital gains amount that we know. So going into 2.0s, once again, it's going to be great because you're going to be able to defer for 5 years, and it's going to be an automatic 5-year deferral. The question is what's going to happen to capital gains taxes in the future? Are they potentially going to go up? And if you think that they might, it is kind of an interesting play to go ahead and to capitalize on solidifying those gains, locking them in now when you know what the rate is, and you can get a discount, and you could go ahead and make that investment into somebody's fund where you can get that discount, and you could go ahead and get your 10-year clock going, because an aged opportunity fund is an incredibly valuable asset.
And that makes sense. Let's hit a couple scenarios for folks that may not have been listening early on in the show, that have jumped in a little bit later. Let's a couple scenarios. Just give me your feedback on there. So, say I'm a smaller investor. I have $150,000 in gains. Is that even enough to make an OZ worth looking at, or does it need to be a 7-figure gain?
No, definitely, because at 100, usually the professionally managed fund minimum investment amounts around 100,000, and so there are some that'll take 50,000. But at $100,000, you can invest into a professionally managed fund, and that's going to be powerful. And so, yes, I would say that it absolutely makes sense for them to look at, particularly when you look at what it's going to grow to. So, just the economics of an OZ deal. If you double in value, you're going to save 24% over what you would normally spend. And that's effectively going to happen every turn of cash. So if it's 3x, normally you would be paying 24% on the 3x, right? Because that's the value that it's grown. So you're going to save 24% automatically. And that's at current capital gains rates, plus whatever your state capital gains rate is. And on a normal 10-year hold, that IRR bump is going to be around 3%. That's a significant difference on a side-by-side deal. If you got a deal that you're looking at that's at a 5% internal rate of return versus an 8% internal rate of return, which deal are you going to do? Especially if they're literally the only thing that separates them is where they are located. And so I think that that's the key piece that people need to be looking at, is not how much gain they have now, but how much is their gain going to be in the future. And so 150,000, absolutely. And we've done captive opportunity funds for less amount than that because they had a good deal that they were going into. Typically, our average investors usually got around between 500,000 and 5 million worth of capital gain. That's usually the people that are coming to us to set up captive opportunity funds. But once again, we've done them for way less than that. We've done them for way more than that. And so key thing is how much you're going to have in the future.
Okay, so another scenario, say I am, because a lot of the folks listening here are in Iredell County or in Catawba, Lincoln, So say I own property that is located in an opportunity zone, and I didn't realize that it was in an opportunity zone. What advice would you give for me? How does that change how I look at the project or my land over the next 10, 20 years? I mean, should I be thinking differently if I find out that my land is in an opportunity zone, or
So if you bought it, you owned it prior to January of 2017, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the program. So it's for transactions that happen after January of 2017, actually January 1st of 2018.
So they would have to sell it into a new entity.
Correct. And if you do, then, and it's a related party entity, then that's going to technically be a bad asset. So you would need to do 2.5x worth of improvements to it in order to make it work, which most deals do. We've got an arrangement with somebody that's got a third-party ground lease company where we can sometimes solve that related party issue, but it requires some definite hoop jumping, because unfortunately the IRS does not allow you to contribute your property into a deal where somebody's going to develop the vertical on it. You actually have to sell it into it, and then you can't take that capital gain and roll it into the deal. Unfortunately, they call that round tripping, and it's circular cash flow. And so you've got to have a way to be able to either have capital gains before you do the deal, or to where you're not involved in the deal.
Understood. So say I have a large stock sell or a large crypto gain. Am I allowed to sell that into a building, or can those kind of gains work inside of an OZ strategy? And how do I think about that with the 180-day clock?
Absolutely. So it could be anything: stock, crypto, sale of a business, sale of real estate, sale of an appreciated baseball card. If it generates capital gains, you can put it into a qualified opportunity fund.
So if I sold my business next year, I could go ahead and start putting a strategy together to sell my business. And
that's right.
Okay, so how would that look? How should I think about that?
Yeah, so we help people with that all the time. So they've got a business. One of the cool things is we know that people are going to potentially sell, and they're probably going to be doing something where they're going to be involved altruistically. We have a program where we can help them save 30% year over year in taxes prior to the sale, and then have a charitable checking account that they have on the back end as well. So they can do that leading up to the sale. Then whatever amount that they have that they get in capital gains, they can put that into a qualified opportunity fund. And a lot of times these folks won't end up, they're not just going to go quietly into the night. They're usually going to do something after that, whether that's doing real estate development or potentially another business. And so they could actually use the funds from that to now do their own development deals, whether that's real estate or whether that's a business. And then they can now grow that for the next 10 years. And here's the cool thing is that a lot of people are like, well, man, I'm, 68 years old. I'm looking to retire. I don't want to, 10 years is too much for me. 10 years, I'm going to be 78 years old. Well, the great thing is that this becomes kind of a poor man's irrevocable trust for purposes of your estate. Is that if you were to die while you had your investment into a qualified opportunity fund, your estate is going to step into your shoes. And so that means that the only amount that's going to go against your lifetime exemption, or the amount that you're going to have to pay in estate taxes, is what your original amount that you invested into the deal was, not what your investment is worth when you die. And so that's one of the great benefits. And then your estate then steps into this step up in basis to fair market value. So if your estate holds it for 10 years and then sells it, they don't pay any taxes between what you originally put in and now what it's worth. That becomes really powerful, and why we've got a lot of folks who are selling their businesses. So part of the silver tsunami, they are evaluating, hey, I either need to sell my business or have sold my business. And now we take the proceeds from that. We help them come up with a diversification strategy. We help them either allocate into their own deals or allocate a portion into their own deals, and then put portions of it with professional sponsors who are then going to get them a return. And now all of that return is going to be coming back to them tax-free.
So, Ashley, thank you so much. This has been very eye-opening and very complicated, but you've made it very understandable for me. So I hope the listeners out there understand. And if 2026 is going to be a year that you're looking to sell a business or a property, I would highly suggest you do some research and perhaps call Ashley or check out OZPros.com because he is the OZ Sherpa. And Ashley, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, Brad, it's been an honor and a privilege. Thanks for having me. It's been good to reminisce, and look forward to seeing you at the next UNCC 49ers basketball game, baby.
There we go. And I'm Brad Howard. This is Beyond the Blueprint on WSIC. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we will see you next Friday at 3 as we go Beyond the Blueprint once again.